Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my channel and my class. My name is Mr. Arias, and this is Math to the Point. So in today's class, we're going to learn how to factor any trinomial expression like the one that we see on this example on the screen, which is x to the power of 2 plus 5x plus 6. This method works for any type of trinomial, even if the variable is not x. You can have something like y, m, p, q, and then these other values like the linear term 5x and the positive 6 could also be any other numbers that you have on your problem. So basically, we have three steps, and we're going to be using this technique that we have used in the past in my class, which is the box or the area method as well. So step one is basically to concentrate on factoring the quadratic term of your expression, which in this case is this x to the power of 2, right? That's going to be step one. Then the second step is going to be to concentrate on factoring the constant term. So the constant term is basically the positive 6 that is hanging around by either adding or subtracting at the end of the expression. And then lastly, we're going to be checking our work, which basically means that we're going to use this value, which is the linear term, 5x, to check that this factorization that we eventually get is the one that we need, okay? So that being said, let's actually dive into the actual process and see how we can use the box method to factor this trinomial. So I'm actually going to need the box, and we explained this in a previous video. So if you haven't watched it, I highly suggest that you find this video on my channel. Look for it as the title of it is How to Factor Algebraic Expressions Using the Box/Area Method, and you're going to find it. That's going to be the basics of this process. And now we're going to be using it to factor this trinomial. So anytime you have a trinomial, you're going to have to split this box into 4 pieces like I did right now, okay? So inside the entries, if you watch the previous video on how to use the box method, you're going to realize that the quadratic term always happens to be in the top left section inside the box. And the constant is always aligned here in the bottom right section inside the box. So what this means is that I'm going to place these terms in those positions. So x to the power of 2 in the top left section inside the box, and then positive 6 in the bottom right section inside the box. Okay. Also, another comment is that these entries here are going to be empty for now, but then eventually when we find the factors of x to the power of 2 and 6, we're going to actually find the values that will go into these spaces right here. Okay. So again, remember that the box method is basically a multiplication of 2 binomials or 2 trinomials, depending on the actual problem that we have. For this factorization problem, since we have a trinomial, our job is going to be to find the base and the height with the terms that are supposed to go in those sections, so that when you multiply them, they produce the following terms, x to the power of 2, and then eventually 6. Now, it sounds a little confusing, but if you go back to the steps 1, 2, and 3, and you follow them one step at a time, it'll be really simple. So let's begin with this process. Okay? So step 1 is to factor the quadratic term, which means x to the power of 2. So the question here, ladies and gentlemen, is what do you have to multiply by? What two terms do we have to use to multiply them and then produce x to the power of 2? If you think about this question, one of the options, pretty much the only option that comes to mind in this case, would be just to multiply x times x, right? Because if I multiply x times x, what's going to happen is that we get x to the power of 2. Now, going back to the box method, remember that if you multiply this term along the base of the rectangle or the box by this term along the height, we produce this top left section inside the box. So this makes sense. If you check it, you can imagine that we're multiplying the x from the base by the x from the height, and then we produce this x to the power of 2. So step 1 is pretty much good. We found the factors of x to the power of 2. Now, the second step is to apply the same process, same specific process, but now for 6. So your job at this moment is to ask yourself, what two factors can I use to produce 6? And those factors are going to be aligned in the second position along the base and the height of your rectangle. So I can think of two combinations right now. So one of them is 3 times 2, and the other one is 1 times 6. So we have these options, 3 times 2, and then we can also use 1 times 6 because those two combinations provide us with 6. I'm actually going to test this one, and we'll see if the second one works as well by any chance eventually. Okay, so I'm going to place my 3 here, my 2 here, and then if you notice, if you multiply the terms in the second position on the base and the height, you actually get this bottom right entry, which is another thing that you might want to check out in the previous video. How do you get the terms inside and in what location of the box when you multiply the terms on the base by the terms on the height? But if you check it, 3 times 2 is equal to 6, so we're pretty much good at this moment. We have step 2 out of the way. Now, remember that I said that these empty spaces were going to be eventually filled out. That will happen right now at this very moment. So if you notice, I already multiplied x times x to produce x to the power of 2. And then I multiplied 2 times 3 to produce 6. What I haven't multiplied is the x from the height by the 3 from the base, and the x from the base by the 2 from the height. That will be the next step. So if I multiply this x from the height by the 3 from the x, what's going to happen is that now we get this entry here, the top right entry inside the box. So after multiplying x times 3, we get 3x, right? As the new term in the top right section of the box. And then in the same way, if I multiply now the x from the base by the 2 from the height, we get the following, 2 times x, which will give us this entry that will turn into 2x. Okay. Now, if you notice, these two terms can be added. So technically speaking, anytime we use the box method and we have all the terms inside the box, you can take them out and see if you actually get back the trinomial that you had initially in the problem. So this is the time that you have to check your work. So you're going to check if this factorization works by just checking that the terms inside the box actually eventually add up or subtract to the original trinomial that we had in this problem. So what this means is that I'm going to take all the terms outside of the box like this. So I have 3x and then positive 2x. And then in blue, we had x to the power of 2. And then we had positive 6. So if you notice, these two terms, 3x and 2x, are like terms. So if I add them up, I'm going to get 5x. And surprise, ladies and gentlemen, we get the initial trinomial that we had originally in the problem. So what this means is that this is the symbol and the sign that your factorization is correct. Now, the final answer is, we're going to put it in parentheses because the final answer is not the trinomial itself, but the factors along the base and the height that we found in these parentheses. So what this means is that my factors would be x plus 3 times x plus 2. This is the final answer in this cloud. This is the factorization for the following trinomial. X plus 3 times x plus 2. Okay. Now, just really quickly, just in case you're playing with different factors in these examples, just know that other combinations might not give you the right answer. For example, just imagine that we take a step back and I just cancel this term right here, this one here, and instead of choosing 2 and 3 as my factors along the base and the height, I choose 1 and 6 as the other combination that we thought about during this process. So let's see what happens if that is the case. So if I choose 1 and 6, as you can see, if I multiply 1 times 6, we do get 6, which makes sense. It's a valid factor combination right now. But then eventually, if I multiply the x from the height by the 6 from the base, I would produce this 6x in the top right section, right? And then by multiplying this x from the base by the 1 from the height, I get 1x. So eventually, if I take all the terms out of the box, I'm going to get I would get 1x plus 6x, and then the terms in blue in this example would be x to the power of 2. I'll just put it in black. And then plus 6. So the only problem here is that if you add 1x plus 6x, you get 7x, not 5x as in the original problem. So when you get to this situation, that is a red flag that shows you that something happened along the factorization. So normally when this happens, when you do not get the same trinomial by taking the terms out of the box and checking the original problem, that is a red flag that your factorization doesn't have the right combination of factors. So in that case, just check another type of combination of factors that you can use, and that could potentially solve the problem in the next few seconds after you just recheck the work. Okay. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. This is how to factor quadratic, basically trinomials, in this case, quadratic trinomials. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm hoping that this helps with your homework and questions. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.